Hi there. Thank you for tuning into my presentation on a creolized or blended dish. I am going to tell you today a little bit about Yock-a-Mein or Chinese soul food. Yock-a-Mein is a noodle dish where Chinese and African American soul food culinary influences intersect. Specifically, a Chinese noodle soup is mixed with a staple in African American cuisine, chicken wings or chicken parts of some sort are mixed together in a noodle dish with various other ingredients to create what is known as Yock-a-Mein. While the exact origins of this noodle soup dish are unknown, it has popped up in port cities of Delaware, New Orleans, and the Tidewater region of Virginia. I'm going to speak to you today specifically about the Virginia version of this dish, its nuances and features. And we'll start with how it came to the area. It's thought that in the early 20th century, Chinese immigrants came to Virginia, specifically Tidewater region, which is Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake area. And with them, they brought their cooking traditions. Because of segregation, they weren't able to freely move about or live or set up businesses in any other neighborhoods other than those which were primarily African American. And in order to be able to make money through their Chinese restaurants, they had to come up with a dish that would resonate with the people in the neighborhood, Black people. So they combined their Chinese noodle soup with chicken wings or chicken parts and various other ingredients that would appeal to the demographic and gave birth to what is known today as Yock-a-Mein. Yock-a-Mein, or as it was originally called by the Wong family, Yock-a-Mein, can also go by Yock, Y-O-K, Yock, Y-O-C-K, or Old Sober. It's a noodle dish that's a fusion of chicken and noodles, and primarily in the Virginia region, a broth that is infused with ketchup. This dish is popular at social events like baby showers, birthday parties, potlucks, even funeral repasts, and it can pop up as a fundraiser, often helping people in lower income neighborhoods pay their rent via rent parties where yak was sold or at church fundraisers. While I was conducting my research for this project, I came across a really interesting cartoon that summarizes the mystery of what is in Yock-a-Mein. It says yak is a noodle dish with a ketchup flavored broth. That is the only thing that we know for sure. The ingredients and spelling of yak are impossible to pin down, and the ingredients include soy sauce, vinegar, cayenne, onion, and egg are usually included too. While the main ingredients to yak can be pinned down as noodles, ketchup, soy sauce, and probably chicken, the other ingredients are really up to the cook. Yak started in Chinese restaurants, carryouts in Black neighborhoods, and they had their secret recipes of how they made this noodle soup that Black people in the neighborhood really loved. Over time, the recipe and the dish itself became so popular that people started making it in their home. And once the recipe transitioned from being available in the Chinese carryouts to being made in people's homes, all types of nuances and additions to the recipe started to pop up. So it's a noodle soup with other ingredients that may include soy sauce, sesame oil, chicken broth, chicken wings or parts, boiled egg, Creole seasoning, chicken bouillon, diced white onion, garlic powder, apple cider vinegar, hot sauce, ketchup, and cayenne pepper. Any combination or variation will do. However, the Tidewater Yock in Virginia must have ketchup in the broth. In addition to ketchup being a staple ingredient to Yock-a-Mein, the noodle is also very specific to the Virginia version of this noodle soup dish. In Virginia, there is a specific Yock noodle that is used, not spaghetti, which you would find in the other Chinese noodle dishes in port cities like Delaware and New Orleans. The Samley Noodle Company, which dates back to 1906, then turned into the Norfolk Noodle Company in the 1950s, was a major supplier to Chinese carry-out restaurants for goods such as yak noodles, chow mein, lo mein, egg wrappers, any of the supplies that were needed to enable the carryouts to produce traditional Chinese dishes. And so this particular yak noodle became a must-have or signature ingredient for the Virginia version of this Chinese noodle soup. Chinese carryouts like Sing Wong and Mama Chan's were the primary places to get Yock-a-Mein in the 1960s, 70s, and into the early 80s. Here at the carryouts, one would be able to purchase a box of noodles, which is a little translation of Yock-a-Mein, with the added protein, which is usually chicken, and then the dish would be passed to the customer where they would be able to customize it with their own amounts of soy sauce, ketchup, onions, scallions, uh, eggs, apple cider vinegar, and fine tune the spice level with chili peppers and cayenne pepper. In the 1980s, as this dish became wildly popular, people started to make it in their homes and add their own recipes, develop their own recipes of how they wanted their yak to taste. Nowadays, the Chinese restaurants like Sing Wong and Mama Chan's in Portsmouth, Virginia, which used to be flagship locations for this Chinese noodle dish, are starting to fade out, and pop-ups similar to rent parties and fundraisers take place online or via word of mouth, where people are making yak their own special recipe of yak in their home. Thereby, the tradition of Yock-a-Mein lives on through home cooks rather than through the Chinese carryout. So I'll tell you a little bit about my first experience with eating yak. Um, I had a coworker who is from Tidewater, Virginia, and we were having conversation about yak, and I had told him that I had never tasted it being in Northern Virginia area. I wanted to have authentic 757, which is the area code for Tidewater region Yock-a-Mein. And one day he came and surprised me with a huge jar of this umami flavor bomb called Yock-a-Mein. It was amazing. It was savory, tangy, vinegary, spicy. It was salty and sweet, so many things all in one, which is why I describe it as umami flavor bomb, because it just felt good across my entire palate. My entire tongue was pleased by taking a bite of this dish. So this is a picture of the first Yock-a-Mein, and it is made with the Yock-a-Mein noodle and not spaghetti. So this was my first introduction and demonstration of how a proper Virginia yak should be made and how it should taste. Here's some video of my first experience making Yock-a-Mein in my home. This was shortly after I had the version my coworker made for me, so I knew the balance of and layers of flavor that were required to recreate the dish. Essentially, you're starting with a pot of aromatics, which is garlic, onions, and simmering that in chicken broth and bouillon for about an hour, and then removing those aromatics, adding the chicken wings, which is what I used in this video. You can also use other chicken parts. Chicken drums are also very common. And those chicken drums were, excuse me, those chicken wings were boiled down until they were very tender. Then the chicken is removed from the broth. The broth is further developed as far as the right taste, or the desired taste. And then the noodles are also cooked in a broth, further infusing flavor. At the end, all of the ingredients, the broth, the chicken wings, the noodles, are combined in a bowl or a carry-out container or jar of some sort and topped with ketchup, soy sauce, sesame oil, apple cider vinegar, diced white onions, scallions if you'd like, most of the time an egg, some cayenne pepper, some hot sauce. It's just a lot of flavor in one bite, and it creates this dish called Yock-a-Mein, which is Chinese soul food chicken noodle soup. Here are some photos of other Yock-a-Meins that I have made since tasting it a couple of years ago. And as you can see, it's a fully customizable dish. It's not going to be made the same every single time unless you have written down a recipe or one has been passed down to you. You're really cooking and layering flavors as you go and how you feel. You can see the one on the right, I have more of a traditional Yock-a-Mein with the ketchup and the diced onions, the scallions, and the eggs. This one, though, does not have the Yock-a-Mein noodle. It was made with spaghetti noodles because I live in Northern Virginia and that's not something that's readily available. You either have to go down to Norfolk or Portsmouth, Tidewater, Virginia, and buy it at one of the local factories or stores, or someone will bring it to you or mail it to you. And then the one that is on pictured on the left, I made with a buffalo pickled egg, which added another layer of flavor. So the dish is fully customizable and a lot of the times cooked to taste, but it is a very comforting noodle soup. Virginia or Tidewater Yock-a-Mein that I have presented and showed to you all in this presentation should not be confused with New Orleans Old Sober, which is also commonly known as Low Rent Lo Mein or Seventh Ward Lo Mein. New Orleans Yock-a-Mein is a stewed beef or brisket soup that is infused with a beef broth and made with spaghetti noodles combined with hard-boiled eggs and green onions. So while it has some similarities to the Virginia version of Yock-a-Mein, it does have its own unique qualities in terms of being made with a beef base, beef protein, and sometimes it would also be made with shrimp. Oxtail may pop up in some of these New Orleans versions, as well as pork. Here's a recipe for chicken yak that I found on soulfoodpot.com. This is a very good representation of the ingredients and steps that it would take to make the Virginia Yock-a-Mein dish presented today. I wanted to bring all of this together, referencing chapter 3 of Sydney Mintz's book that we just read, and it talks about the processing, the distribution, and the emergence of cuisine. The Chinese immigrants that came to Norfolk, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Virginia, controlled the processing and distribution of their Chinese foodways. And in that interaction, they came in contact with African Americans in the area, and a very special cuisine or dish was created called Yock-a-Mein. The fusion of two very unique culinary styles came together to create this dish that is infamous with Black Chinese soul food in this particular region of Virginia. Thank you for tuning into my presentation. Here is a list of the sources that I have cited in the event that you want to take a deeper dive into learning more about this dish.